If you love history, traditional arts and skills, and vintage living as much as I do, come join me here at the Homestead, where the conversations are always interesting and educational. I'm glad you're here. Hello, and welcome to Willow's Vintage Homestead, where we talk about all manner of old-timey topics. I'm your host, Willow Polson, and with me today is Cindi Reusch of Small Woods Farm, and we're going to talk about foraging and herbalism and homestead life and all kinds of good stuff. How you doing, Cindi?
I'm doing great.
Now, there's a local plant that you're kind of an expert in, and it is,
Yerba Santa.
yes, a holy herb, and it is kind of good for everything. I mean, you use it for everything. So tell us the best qualities of this amazing plant. And it is kind of about 3 feet tall-ish, gets purple flowers on it. It's an interesting looking thing. It's pretty.
Yeah, it is very pretty, and it grows right in this range at between about 24 and 3,200 feet throughout the Sierra and down into Mexico is its range. You won't find it down in the lower lands. You won't find it up over 4,000 feet anywhere, which
Hmm.
makes it kind of special for this area right here. Its botanical name is Aerodictyon californicum. I became interested in it actually when I moved up here in 2019. I started identifying plants because that's just something I've always done. I was out on a ride with a friend over in the burn scar for Detweiler. The
Mm.
burn had come right up to her fence. Beautiful
Ooh.
property down in Mount Bullion. Tina worked in a capacity for Mariposa County. Actually, part of her job was identifying and locating plants. So pretty cool stuff. So she was a
Oh, yeah.
valuable resource. And she introduced me to this plant out on a ride because I was saying, "What's this? What's this?"
Hmm.
And at that point, that was just before I had moved to this elevation where it was all at. I was in Don Pedro at about 2,000 feet. So she told me what it was, and I started doing some research on it. And we bought this property in 2019, and it's on the property. And the research was interesting because there's actually quite a bit of scientific research on this plant, which you
Oh,
don't
good.
find with a lot of herbs. So that kind of scratched my itch, and I got into that a little bit. And especially, I was interested in the research that's been done for Yerba Santa for tuberculosis.
Hmm.
Internally, it's again the holy herb. It really is. It's been used both in Native American and in 19th and 20th century healers using this for to treat tuberculosis for all sorts of respiratory ailments. It's kind of like mullein in that sense that it opens up the respiratory. It's an expectorant, it's an anti-inflammatory, and
Mm.
it's a native. So how cool is that?
Yeah.
Then I learned its topical benefits. This plant has been used again in Native American culture. They are who taught the early Spanish padres who gave it this name, Yerba Santa. It's also
Right.
called consumptive weed and a few other names.
I like
And
Yerba Santa better than
I do too.
consumptive weed.
I think so too. It was used as a poultice for sprains, burns, all sorts of things, which got me thinking about how I could use this in a salve topically,
Right.
which became my holy herb balm. And where I've found it just amazing is things like minor burns, bug bites, any type of a rash, that sort of thing. It really does speed up the healing. It's
Ah.
soothing, it's calming to I have ridiculously sensitive skin for a farmer. It's from sunburn to bug bites, and then now working at the cafe in the kitchen, that's what we keep in there for burns,
Oh,
because
wow.
of course you do get a lot of burns. And it's a great herb in this all around sense, but I've learned to use it in more specific ways, which has been mostly as a topical. I do tincture it. I have used it in tea. I've used it in smudge. It makes a nice sweet element
Oh, yeah, yeah.
to a smudge using maybe mullein and sage or something like that.
Mhm.
There's a recent article I had been reading that they're looking at it as a neuroprotector. It
Wow.
contains a flavonoid called sterubin. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Sterubin,
Mm.
maybe. And the Salk Institute has identified it as having a neuroprotective effect on the brain, on brain cells in
Wow.
lab studies. So this is a grown up weed here that
Grown up weed.
they're looking at potentials for treating Alzheimer, for neurodegenerative conditions. It can have a stabilizing effect on blood sugar.
Good
So
heavens.
Yeah, right here in our backyard, we drive by it constantly along the sides of the road. Of course, I forage for it farther back. I'm letting the plants on my property pretty much have their way as they
Yeah.
establish. The former owners here had scraped the land bare of native
Oh,
plants. So anything
yeah,
that
that's a
comes
common
up,
thing.
it is, and it's unfortunate. But it's coming back, it's healing. We have several spots where we will ride out with the horses or on the quads and harvest couple really nice patches where I can walk in several hundred yards and these plants are up at my shoulders, just
Oh,
beautiful and
wow.
waxy and resiny. And if I'm going to put it in oil, infuse it into oil for a salve, because it is a resinous plant. So it takes
Right, okay.
a bit longer. Normally, I will do about an 8-week infusion. I tend to give this about 6 months and add a little heat to break those resins down into the
Okay,
oil.
okay.
And
Yeah,
tincture flame.
I
Hmm.
got asked once in a dye class if that would be good for dyes, and I was said, probably not because it is so resinous, but have noticed any dye qualities to it?
I did one of my early tinctures with it was with a much higher alcohol content than I normally use. I
Mhm.
usually use 100 proof. And this was actually some home distilled that I was working with that was about 180 proof. And
Whoa.
the color it pulled, I actually didn't use it medicinally. It was a little scary at that proof, trying to get that diluted down. I didn't want to dilute out any of the medicinal properties, but it was a little
Yeah, yeah.
test batch because I wanted to work with this alcohol more than with the herb. It pulled an astonishing color out of it that was a really, really dark green. We're talking like bog water green.
Like
Um,
spinach or something or
yeah, and it was
oh,
beautiful.
wow. Well,
It's-
maybe I'll have to give that a shot, but, probably
Right?
I have to boil it for a couple hours or something, right?
Yeah, you might. In tea, in oils, it doesn't really pull a whole lot of color. Adding some heat, I do get a green oil from it.
Oh,
So my salve is usually, depending on the how dark the beeswax I'm using, it
mhm.
will have a greenish tinge to it. My holy herb balm. I also use wild nettle in that, which nettle pulls great color.
Yeah.
So that will tend to give that a darker green as well. If that's another use of this plant, how cool is that?
Right? I mean, now I'm kinda worried that it's gonna start getting, like, picked to heck. Like, the native ginsengs and stuff are
Yes.
disappearing because people go crazy with that, and
The good thing with this plant is I've seen areas where there's been a small burn or they've even scraped. There's been some area, there's a spot up on Shilling that I've picked before and it had been scraped for
mhm.
some reason. I'm not sure if it was fire break or they needed a space to park some equipment or something. And I noticed in there really quickly a stand came into there. So it does like
Nice.
that disturbed, unfortunate soils, just like mullein
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, that's great because, I mean, we have a lot of that around here,
Yeah, we do.
right? Right, with erosion, and then the road
Yeah.
crews will come through and, clear out ditches, and then here it comes, so
Yeah, and I notice it on a lot of these barer hillsides.
mhm.
One patch that we harvest quite a bit. You have to ride in a couple of miles. It's a hillside that is it's bare. I think it burned at some point, although I'm not seeing a whole lot of evidence of that. But it's just covered in the California bush poppy and this yerba santa.
Wow.
There's no trees. There's like nothing else wants to really grow there. There's no manzanitas, but
Mm.
it seems to be a pretty opportunistic weed, which is a good thing for it not getting overused.
Yeah, for sure. Like, unlike a bulb where it takes years for it to do anything, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Or you need fire for it to spread. Like
Mhm.
that's the case with, I've been trying to get those California bush poppies to grow here on my property now for 3 years. And I guess I have to fire them. And that's another thing I'll have to learn. Another skill I'll have to learn is how to encourage seeds to grow through the heat process that they want these wildfires to really take off.
Yeah,
Which-
yeah, because, I mean, obviously, with so many houses and such,
Mhm.
we have to control that or else everybody's gonna lose their house.
Right.
So
Right.
we're in these biomes that, here we come along and the trees and the plants are like, "Well, hey, what's all this? We need to have fire. We need to have a certain kind of growth, and now there's all these weeds, and here's yellow star thistle." Ah.
Oh, the Starthus. I fought that when I lived in the valley. I was a horse trainer for 35 years and I had a training facility and that was the one, that star
Yep.
thistle. I fought that valiantly for about
Mhm.
25 years. I never won, but I
Ah,
didn't stop the fight. because that's a gnarly one, and we do
Yeah.
unfortunately have that up here in
Yep.
the area,
Yeah,
and
I
those.
do. At the bottom of my road. Well, it started out on the Forest Service property and they didn't
Mm.
eradicate it. Now it's creeping up towards my house and it's like, well, shoot, here we
All
are.
we can do is set our line and
Yeah.
say you can't, you shall not pass this line, and
That's
that's
right.
about all we can do is
Yeah.
find our spot, and keep it out. But that's a pernicious
Yeah.
beast that wants to take over the state.
Yes, yes, unfortunately, and that's why I use so many non-native invasives in my dyes is in part just because I want to rip it out of there and hey, I can make something useful out of it.
There's
So,
a use for it, absolutely.
right.
Yeah,
Because a lot
yeah.
of them come from Europe and are useful, like plantain, for
Uh-huh.
example, great medicinal herb, not native, and it's everywhere and it spreads with these seeds that go springing off and
The first thing that came back on this property was the narrowleaf plantain.
mhm,
It's a valuable herbal in my apothecary. One of the things I do appreciate about it is its ability to bust up the soil a little bit. It
mhm.
has free reign in my orchard, my small orchard, which is also part of my chicken system. So that becomes a food for the chickens, those seeds. But
Ah,
it does help loosen the soil where I don't have any natives that want to grow in there, unfortunately.
oh,
We
interesting. Okay.
yeah, we've been encouraging the bear clover, which has
Hmm.
taken over our small front woods, but that doesn't seem to want to come up any higher. I keep
Huh.
I keep telling it, come on up, come on up.
Well, we've got a whole hillside full of that also, AKA these things had to have both good and terrible names, such
Mhm.
as misery weed.
Yes,
I prefer bear clover because,
I do
yeah.
too. I think that's the nice one.
I mean, is it useful for anything?
Ground cover.
Yeah, okay.
My interest is in growing soil. That's
Mhm.
where everything begins. That's what we started doing here from day one. And my entire herb gardens are the ground cover is clover, which again, that's a nitrogen fixer that helps loosen up soil.
But you
Um,
mean the not bear clover because that's a
right. No, I'm
misnomer.
talking
It's
about, yeah, your white clover,
nitrogen.
red clover, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 right.
Because the bear clover isn't a true clover, but looking for the natives first. The natives will help build their own soil. Again, the former
Right.
owners even scrape the pine needles away. And that's why there's like 50 dead, dying down trees on this property.
Mhm.
Is these trees, they need these native creepers at their feet. They need their pine needles. Without the pine trees, we don't have a forest.
Right,
So
right.
I rather like living in the forest. So the foundation before we even worried about growing our own food is what can we do for these trees to keep them healthy and happy with the drought, with the bark beetles, with all of the things
Mhm,
happening in California to these beautiful trees. And
mhm.
also to encourage the black oaks, which we had just a few here, and now we have a lot more after 6 years. Those also are first line. We want these trees. Then what do the trees need? They need their needles, first of all. So we don't
Mhm.
remove their needles other than from driveways and areas like that. Then they need these ground covering shrubs and plants to help keep the soil cool, to help with erosion. And one of the things that I've noticed and that I've read about it is erosion control. That's kind of
Oh,
its
absolutely.
superpower.
Yeah, the underground runners are very
Mhm.
tough and spread all over the place. Yes, it's great for erosion, yeah.
And that helps keep the soil cool. It gives a place for critters to move through, hopefully out
And
of
the
sight of my dogs, etc.
and the
So
bees like it.
the bees like it, and the bees are another foundational part of the homesteading, and
Absolutely.
the whole system here is dependent on this ground being happy and not being just
Yeah.
dried and scraped.
Yes, our property was done in the 1950s, and we just now are like, well, I don't want to say just now. I mean, we got some pretty sizable trees at this point, but I mean, yeah, when my mother-in-law bought it in '83, it was just like a big meadow. I mean, there was just
Mm,
nothing, no trees, nothing, and now it's got some substantial trees, pines and oaks, yeah, black oaks
yeah.
and live oaks and
Mhm.
everything in the world, including bears and mountain lions, and it's
As
I
it
saw
should be.
I saw a great gray owl one time, and
Ooh.
so, yeah, we've got a great ecosystem. We've got a creek down below the house, so there's a lot of great diversity down there. That's where I get my basket willows from. Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
isn't the black oak one of the most beautiful trees?
Oh,
I just
yeah. Mhm.
they just caught me, and that's another one that doesn't grow at all elevations, and it's just a stunning tree as far as its size and shade. It's different than other oaks, and yet it's tough and can handle the droughts and, isn't fussy. And I just think it's stunningly beautiful.
Well, it's a great food plant too, right? Because
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we've got another mast year this year. Not as good as last year. Last year was a huge mast year for the acorns, and I
Yeah.
got like 5, 6 boxes of them, still just kind of sitting over by the fireplace. But yeah, I mean, get those acorns and make some flour and add
Hmm.
it to your bread. Super nutritious.
Currently, I'm letting the pigs turn it into future bacon.
Oh, well, there you go. There's that.
They're down in the woods and they hoover those things up like like candy. And I'm like, go right ahead, girls,
Right.
because you're just gonna turn that into something for wintertime in the freezer for us.
Right, right. Well, so then let's talk about your personal homestead because everybody's is a little different. Like I'm vegetarian, so I don't have meat
Mhm,
animals. I have some
mhm.
chickens for eggs, but you'd use like tallow in your some of your products, and so
Correct.
yeah, what's that look like for how many acres do you have over there?
We're just under 4 acres, so it's not a
Oh
whole
wow.
lot. We moved up in 2019 with our initial goal was to homestead. I was working up at Rush Creek in the management
Mm.
team, so I didn't have a
Oh,
whole lot of time. We wanted our first goal was the homestead goal. Food, medicine, growing soil, of course, became the first consideration because our soil here was awful, as a lot
hmm,
of mountain soil is, even when it's taken care of.
yeah.
But we started planting some fruit trees. We ended up with, not counting our shrubs like the blueberries and that sort of thing, but just for our stone fruit and apple trees, I think we are at 23 trees this year.
Great.
But that's been a, slow, steady planting. We got those in, the medicinal ground covers like the clover, the culinary herbs. And our first goal we talked about, because we moved in the spring, our first goal was to produce 80% of our meat within 5 years through hunting and growing out animals.
Okay.
And we actually reached over 90% within 3 years.
Oh
And
wow.
the reason we both felt passionate about that is the ethics around the way our food systems are, especially regarding meat animals. That's always been a concern for me, especially pigs and chickens.
Yeah.
The CAFOs, what sometimes people call them factory farms, but those concentrated grow outs have always turned me off. That's
Hmm.
something that I don't have any qualms about eating animals, but I have great qualms about how they are grown out, what kind of life they have, and especially, honestly, what kind of death they have.
Yeah.
So the ethics surrounding that was important to us, that we know these animals. We know that they never have one bad day. And they don't. They aren't shipped off to a slaughterhouse.
Right.
They are grown out with great care and attention, and belly scratches where wanted. And
Hmm.
they're in the sunshine and the dirt. And that's what's needed to grow healthy meat. If you're going to be eating meat, these animals
Hmm.
need to have sunshine and dirt, which so often pigs and chickens, especially, don't ever see either one of those.
Yeah.
So we wanted them to have that kind of a life, to be dispatched here humanely without any fear or concern, which is how we do it here. And that's
Hmm.
sheep. Sheep, we have done cattle, but it's not a lot of land for cattle. So
Yeah.
primarily pigs, sheep. Our chicken system is a little different than some. We are a certified egg seller now. We got that certification last year because
Great.
we had stores wanting our eggs. I've had chickens now. I'm 61. I've had chickens since I was a teenager nonstop. I've always had free range systems. I know
Hmm.
that is up here. You do lose some to predators. The system here, my herb system, my fruit system, we are fully organic. We are not certified organic yet, but we
Hmm.
use no pesticides. We use no herbicides that are not, well, we don't use any herbicides actually, but even with pesticides, only organic. The chickens are the front line. They go into the gardens in wintertime are open. We just opened them up a couple weeks ago. They work the garden for us, our veg garden area,
Mm.
all winter and into growing season. So they are going through getting rid of the bugs, the eggs, the weed seeds, all of that, working that up. They Our main chicken system, the coops and all of that, is in our orchard, and
Mm.
they spend a good part of the day out there around those trees. They eat all of the dropped fruit that we don't pick up and give to pigs. The chickens are doing both the pesticide work for us,
Mhm.
and they also are fantastic for tilling the soil.
Right.
for spreading their own manure, as well as we drop manure from our other animals around those trees. The chickens
Mhm.
spread it. They pick out all of the eggs from fly larvae, all that sort of thing. They spread
Mhm.
our manure in our horse pens and our pig pen, and they work. They work hard. When my hens are no longer laying, they get a retirement here because they're just as valuable for the work that they do as they are for their eggs. To me,
Ah.
that is an equal equivalent value. So we might have, I think right now we have 35 adults and 15 babies at this point.
Oh, wow.
um, of those 35 adults, we've got some younger ones. Only about 15 are young enough to lay. The rest are retired from the occasional egg in springtime, which is just fun because they're out there doing the important work of fixing my soil, of making it better.
Right. Right.
And you can see that in the areas where they're working, that
Yeah.
there's a depth to that soil. The chickens are super important for that. We do eat the roosters. They aren't of use because we've actually tried to run extra roosters besides our flock protector. And the young guy started taking a group of hens down into the apple trees to roost at night, and we lost almost 20 of them within a couple
Oh,
of days to
no.
predators.
Right, predators, yep.
So no more of that. Just one rooster here, and that's our boy Ralphie. He's doing a good job.
Ralphie.
Um, yeah, Ralphie Roo. So the chickens are super important. We integrate these systems as best we can. Our overall protectors, we have three German shepherds, all
Ah,
female. They have a really cool little dog barn that Kevin built for them, but they have access to the chicken system at night as well as the fruit system. Moving up here with the idea of farming, I got told by all the old timers, you can't farm here. It won't work. It's not
mm.
possible in these mountains. Well, they weren't wrong. It's darn near impossible.
Yeah,
But what I've found is the importance of the system. So having these dogs able to access these areas, they are our predator control. So they are protecting the chickens, the chicken system, which at night the chickens go in their coops and they're closed up, and nothing's getting into those coops because the dogs are protecting that at night. So and again our fruit orchards out there, so the deer aren't attacking the fruit orchard, so we aren't having to haze the deer because the dogs do that for us.
right, right.
So the homestead is tiny, but it's an integrated system of the animals and the plants
Yeah.
working together as best as we all can.
Yeah, on this poor soil we have in this area.
Yes. We do all our vegetables in raised. We use
Mhm.
containers and raised, and
Yep.
we're not like selling vegetables. That's for our own use. We did reach our goal with the veg was 50% within 5 years.
Oh, great.
We actually this last year, well in 24 we were at about 80%. There's stuff I don't grow that I buy. And then we had a market crop of our fruit. We were able to maintain fruit into the Coulter General Store for
Mhm.
pretty much all summer,
Yeah,
which
those
was,
peaches.
yeah, the peaches, the nectarines, the apricots we didn't bring in because that tree is just a baby that's starting out. We're hoping
Ah,
next year to have the apricots and
great. I love fresh apricots, and you just
oh,
can't get stuff like that in the grocery store because they pick them hard for shipping.
uh-huh. Yeah, and by the time they soften, they don't have the flavor.
No.
One of the things that was so cool is we were able to use the marketing tool of our farm page and the store page and let everybody know, hey, I'm doing a drop tomorrow. And
Right.
most of the time, what I would bring in was anywhere from 10 to 15 baskets of fruit. They're all 4 pound baskets, and they would be gone by the second day, which was perfect. They're taking
Yeah.
home ripe fruit. There was a couple times I brought in some that needed a couple days to ripen, but mostly what we were bringing in was right then ready to eat or within a day or
Nice.
so. Made it nice. And we
Mhm.
had our local, I call her the jam goddess, Carson Tyree with Sticky Fingers Jam. She bought a lot of the peaches and nectarines and turned that into some beautiful jams that we also
Mm.
had in the store, and I have a good amount of that in my cupboard for the winter time.
That reminds me, I foraged a lot of blackberries, and I gotta turn those into jam for the holidays. Hopefully no one that I know is listening to this because you're getting jam.
I
But
love turning those into alcohol. I make mead with the blackberries here.
oh,
They're
yeah.
so
Well,
good.
probably your apples too, I'd imagine you do hard cider.
Yes, we didn't get a good harvest this year. This was the first
Mm.
time we got but which we had a huge bumper crop last year. So I think the trees were just giving it a skip. So I didn't get any cider or cider
Mm.
made with the apples this year, unfortunately. But we did get a good amount of peach melomel started,
Oh,
and
man.
that's always a treat. And blackberry mead. I think I did a blackberry wine. I think I got that started in there as well.
Ooh. See, I
Uh,
have not yet to make wine. Understand it's a lot more complicated than just throwing 3 ingredients in a carboy, and then a month later you've got mead, you know?
Mine's not. That's how I make wine.
Oh, really? Well, good. I have
I make
you have
wine the same way I make mead. I just use
oh my
sugar
gosh.
instead of I like raw sugar and I use raw sugar instead of honey. And that's the
Oh,
only difference. Um,
well, I am very encouraged.
Last year I did a cran apple. I literally used our apples and a bag of cranberries, the
Mhm.
ocean spray cranberries, and I cooked those down just a little bit, got them a little squishy, threw those
Ooh.
in there, and made a gallon of cran apple wine that was fantastic.
Oh, man.
That was probably the best one I've made. And then I did a pomegranate with some local pomegranates that a friend had bartered with me, and I made a
Oh.
pomegranate wine with that that was so good.
Oh,
And
I had one lonely pomegranate because something is eating my pomegranate flowers. I think it must be birds or something.
oh
So
no.
once again this year I have one lonely pomegranate. So I think I'm
Oh,
gonna just like juice it, put it in with some meat or I don't know. But I really wanted to get into foraging and I may have to have you back on another time unless we can cover it super quick because we're actually out of time already.
okay. There's one other thing that I do forage locally. Pine resin. Pine resin's a huge one for
Oh.
me. We do a lot of pine resin foraging, of course, using good practice, never taking more than 1/3 of a scab. High summer
Uh-huh.
is when you got a lot of that sap running. It's a good time to get a little of that. And the anti-inflammatory effects of pine resin and the numbing effect I've found really great in pain
Oh.
salves. I like to combine it with cannabis and comfrey in
Oh.
my favorite pain salve I make is called Pain in the Butt because I had a bout of sciatica when I came up with it. That's another one that is really fantastic for foraging. I think that and the Yerba
Mm.
Santa are the main ones that I don't grow here that I go out and forage. People need to look into the benefits of pine resin because it's the aromatherapy alone is fantastic, but even beyond
Right.
that, antimicrobial, antibacterial, been used by many cultures as a forest bandage. You can put that right onto a wound, a burn. It'll draw out
Ah.
infection. Very good for drawing infection out.
Wow. Boy,
Yeah.
the world around us just provides and people forget these things because we're so disconnected from where anything comes from. I mean, people a lot of kids have no idea like where meat comes from. In the grocery store, they
Mhm.
see this pink stuff in a shrink wrap thing and they're like, "Oh, that's meat." Where is it from? It's from somebody's leg, It's like
Yes.
you have to know
Yes.
these things.
Yes, I'm a big advocate for kids going to these farms. We did when I was a kid in the valley. We went to dairy farms and we even went to some cattle yards and things like that as for school trips and learned some of
Mm,
that stuff. And
yeah, yeah.
it needs to be learned because we're all in danger of not seeing the forest for the trees.
Yes.
And I think that there's a lot of that, and I'm guilty of it at times as well. So that's the mission is making sure I'm seeing each of those trees and what they can do and what their benefits are and how I can help if they're on my property. What can I do to help them grow and help them reach their full glory as well?
Well, that is a perfect end cap to this podcast in part because that's the whole point of why I'm doing this is so that people don't forget these, old-timey skills, but also, I mean, ancient knowledge in some cases and what the world around us can provide in a good way. So,
Absolutely.
thanks a lot for being here. And to my listeners, there's more great shows coming up and check out my back catalog too. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.